Okay, so guys, this is the most key piece of information that you need to look at. The Deregulation Act of 2015, failure to serve one of these documents will result in your notice that you serve being invalid, okay? Now, remember that if you serve a 6-month notice that is invalid and you don't realise until the 6 months has expired, you've got a long wait to then reserve again. So when you are creating a tenancy and before the tenant moves in, under the Deregulation Act of 2015, you must evidence and be able to provide evidence that you have served a gas certificate, an energy performance certificate, E rating or above, since the 1st of April 2019, prescribed information and deposit registration within 30 days of receipt, a current version of the How to Rent Guide, and a license where applicable. Now, why I say a license where applicable is because most people refer to licenses under HMOs. It doesn't just apply to HMOs. It applies to mandatory licensing, which is surrounding HMOs. It applies to selective licensing, which applies to the whole of the UK, where there is a selective licensing policy in place in specific areas. And it also applies to additional licensing, where your area holds additional licensing requirements. Now, failure to serve the license will result in you not being able to serve notice should the need arise. I see that somebody has a question, Ali. Could you just ask Matthew what the question is?
I was going to say, Matthew, if you want to actually type the question in, that'll be great. We'll be sure to answer it. And David asks, I have heard the government are looking at making it EPC rating C by 2026. Is this correct? Dawn, have you heard of this?
I have. And David, if I'm honest, I hope not. Yeah. Because many properties will not meet that criteria. So that is a huge concern. I really do hope not.
Yeah.
I have heard of it though, and I have seen it out there, and I will, of course, as ever, keep you updated. David, you're a landlord of ours, so you know if there are any changes, we will most definitely be in touch with you directly.
Absolutely, but yeah, as you say, fingers crossed that one doesn't happen. That's going to cause a lot of aggro. Amy, what about EICR? I'm assuming in regards to the Deregulation Act, that question is: does the EICR now make up any part of the Deregulation Act?
I am going to cover the electric safety regs in the next couple of slides, but I will answer your question, Amy. It doesn't form part of the Deregulation Act. So if you don't provide the EICR prior to the start of tenancy, you can still serve a valid notice, but what you potentially are open to is a £30,000 fine. So under that piece of legislation, you're okay, but under the new piece of legislation, you're falling foul.
Absolutely. Martin, how long does an EPC last, or how often do we need to update EPCs? Martin, I can tell you that EPCs have a 10-year shelf life, and actually if you go on the government's new version of a EPC check-in website, they actually now tell you what the expiry date is. So you can just put in your postcode and it will tell you what your expiry date is in your current EPC, but it is 10 years. So you can check that out on the government website. Just Google EPC Finder. Matthew,
can I just add one thing to that? How often do we need to update EPCs? As Ali's just said, you need to update them when they expire, ideally. There is some confusion out there that actually if your tenant is still in there when the EPC expired, that you don't need to. Well, I would argue the case that do you want to get to court with a notice and the judge not understand the exact rules of the Deregulation Act, which only actually states that you need to provide the EPC at the start of tenancy. So my recommendation and best practice is always to do them on the expiry, or if you have one that is below an E rating, you should have already looked at getting that sorted now.
Perfect. There's actually just another question that's just come in from Bill regarding EPC. So if the recommended works are carried out in EPC, do I need to have another EPC inspection? I'm assuming you mean recommended works to get it up to an E grade at least. Over to you, Dawn.
Yes, absolutely. If you carry out the work, do you then need to get the EPC assessor to reattend and reassess the grade of the EPC, because you need to hold on file a valid EPC at the rating required.
And whoever you get round that says that it doesn't meet the grading, like our EPC guy Nigel, he's fantastic. He's a lovely bloke, and what he now does is he goes and does the first visit, and instead of before issuing the certificate, he'll tell you what the work is. He'll do the work out the grading, tell you what you need to do, and then he'll come back and do the second visit for free, and then issue the certificate. So he'll only charge you once, which is really fair. So see who you're working with and see what you can sort out. Matthew, how do you prove that you have checked during a tenancy that your house is habitable? An inspection report, perhaps?
Absolutely, it needs to be an inspection. The government and the law expect you as landlords to regularly inspect the property that you're renting out to ensure that you are staying on top of all of your obligations. So the fact that you just haven't been bothered to inspect because your tenant pays the rent will not be a defence if the tenant then later claims that the property's been in disrepair. So regular inspections are recommended, not only for that purpose, but from a positive purpose, just so that your tenant is looking after the place and doing what they should do.
Absolutely. However, perhaps at the moment a video meeting would be better. Another question here from Alex. Do we need to send a copy of council licence to a tenant where the licence was set up after the tenant moved in?
Yes. So in many cases, when a tenancy starts, you may well not have the physical licence. You will only have an application in with the council. So firstly, if you have applied for the licence, you must be able to evidence that you applied for it prior to the start of tenancy, if that is applicable. And then once you receive the licence, you provide a copy to the tenants, because it has clauses in there as to what they need to abide by as well. So it is vitally important that the tenants are given a copy of the licence.
Perfect. Okay. And then we have Matthew said, and during this pandemic, so this was what the question in regards to inspections. So again, during the pandemic, it's really, I mean, you can do inspections if you feel you need to.
You can do inspections only if you really need to. If not, look at the video option.
Yeah, definitely. Bill, same with the EICR. So again, that's in regards to if the recommended works are carried out in the EICR, so the C1s, C2s, I'm assuming. Do you need another full report? Dawn, I'm assuming you're going to cover that in the next section, are you?
I will cover that, but I will also answer the question because I'm mindful of time. So no, in answer to your question, with the EICR, you don't need to carry out another inspection. But what you do need to do is evidence that the works have been carried out. So by way of an invoice. So if, for example, we have an electric certificate here that has 3 code 2s and they are listed as to what they are, we have an invoice here that matches exactly what was needed. The works have been carried out, and you put the two together and you now have a satisfactory ICR. My recommendation, where possible, is if you can get electricians to just issue you one anyway while they're there, it would be so much easier because it's one document rather than 2 and it's less confusing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. What else have we got here? So, Matthew, would that be satisfied as the tenant takes you on a video tour? Would a video inspection be satisfied?
Yeah, we answered that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Dan has asked, how often do you recommend you inspect your property?
It all depends. I mean, when you first rent out your property, the recommended inspection time is sooner because, of course, they are new. So if you've done a 6-month tenancy, I most definitely would recommend that you inspect at 3 months. In normal circumstances, we recommend at 3 months because if they're not looking after the property, you might want to serve notice to them on month 4. If your tenant's been there for a while, you may want to extend that period, but I would be inspecting the property at least once annually.